Are you working on your author career but struggling to get that first book published? Does the goal of being an author seem too lofty? Or thoughts of having multiple books and making a full-time living are as fantastical as living in Cinderella's castle? Welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where aspiring authors can be heard. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have gotten their foot on the author career path. Hear what they've done to get there and where they want to go now. Settle back. It's time for a bit of inspiration and advice. Come listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
Stuff, because I love talking to people that have been writing. My goal is to talk to authors that aren't known and help get the word out. Which you fall into that category where you started off before the whole self-publishing thing and you've rolled into it. So what have you learned from when you first started to now, especially with things being so digital now? What have you learned that you're doing different?
That I'm doing different? Well, excuse me. The one big thing is I now, instead of writing out by pencil on paper, on a college rule paper, I do everything. I do everything direct into Scrivener. That's the program I use, and it's a great program. And that was one of the best things I bought was a little $19 Bluetooth keyboard, so I can just sit and just dump stuff in there. So that was a big change. Other than that, I mean, you just you got to get up and write and do it, just all the time. And then beyond that, like we were talking earlier, trying to build a community, people editors and other authors and things like that, to spread out, because we're all loners, when we're writing. You can't. It's not really a group activity. So, so we belong to the Cleveland Writers Group, and that's pretty valuable because Dave is focused on the marketing end of things. So once you have a book and getting it out and promoting it and getting it sold, that's it's a huge prospect besides just putting together a book.
Right.
So that's valuable there, coming up with different ideas to promote it. And then I'm in another group called the West Side Writers Group, which is a small, I think there's 5 or 6 of us, and we get together the third Saturday, and it's a critique group, which, you put out about, 3,000 or 4,000 words, and then you get a critique on it month in and month out. And that's really important to hear what other people perceive about what you're writing. Like in the mysteries, I know the ending, so I can't fool myself. But you get important feedback about what they think is going to happen and what are the red herrings and what's working, what isn't, and that's pretty valuable too.
So you've been doing this for a while. I assume you've checked out other groups or they've come and gone. Why choose these particular groups and stay with them?
Well, like I said, most of the other writing groups I was involved with were critique groups, kind of like the West Side Writers Group. Some of them were, their focus was, Game of Thrones stuff. That's all they wanted to read about and do. So, and I don't fit that. So I just kind of moved on. Whereas with the West Side Writers Group, it's all different genres. Malcolm does sci-fi, and I do mysteries, and we got a kind of a.
So you gotta see Malcolm twice a month.
Yeah, I get to see him twice a month. Well, when we get together, yeah.
Right.
So there's a wide variety there. It's a small enough group that you can consistently get critiqued, right? Because it gets tough to join a group. You get critique 1 month, and then you don't get critique for another 3 months. So I've been able to run probably 1, 2, 3, four. I'm on my 5th book that I've run through the group, and that feedback is just great consistently, month in and month out, getting the feedback. So that's why some of them dropped off.
And I like how you say that, because not all groups are critiquing groups. Not all groups are about marketing and stuff. Some
Mhm.
really are just to maybe hone the craft, but have somebody to talk to.
Yeah,
I've been in several different groups, but it's also, I guess, the overall feel with everybody, because there were some that I'm like, yeah, I just don't click in this one.
right,
It's
right.
hard to define that, but I'm saying that to encourage other readers. Hey, if you got a local group and you went to the group and you're like, yeah, this isn't for me, it doesn't mean groups won't work and won't be
Yeah,
beneficial to you.
and you got to be, you have to be flexible. I mean, I'm not really I'm not really big on some of the outer space sci-fi stuff like what Malcolm does, but it's good to read that stuff. It's good to be exposed to it, to and hear his takes on things and what he's trying to accomplish. We've had some other people, that one guy did a religious book, and so it's not it. You shouldn't go out and look for just everything being the same as what you already do.
Right.
And plus, when you get feedback from these other people, it's from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they'll see things that you never thought of. So yeah, it's important to find the right mix with the people. Like
Right.
you said, there's just some folks that are doing their own thing, and it's just doesn't match up.
And it's important too to participate. It's not just I'm going to go read my stuff and get a critique to help me, but going and reading other people's stuff and critiquing it, because building that skill with somebody else's really helps a lot on your own.
Oh,
I
yeah,
found that a
absolutely.
lot.
Yeah, yeah. It does make a big difference, and it's in the and you know the West Side Writers Group is more structured, right? So it's not just you show up and read a small piece and people throw out comments. You get the piece in advance and you get a chance to read it a couple times, go through things, So it's more of a deliberate process, rather than just doing off the cuff reactions.
Right. And it also gives you a good chance to get some feedback and toughen that skin up a little bit, because you'll get some people that get really harsh about it and you may
Yeah,
not agree with them, and they may not even be completely right for your style or your genre. I found that too. I know I've heard people give comments and feedback on the structure of some first couple chapters, and I disagreed with it because the style of the story did not fit what the feedback was saying they should change it to. You know what I mean?
right.
But again, that's an experience thing. You have to go and start building up that experience.
Yeah, you have to listen and take it all in, and then decide. Then you have to sit back and decide what's important and what isn't, what really applies to you, and what might not. You know,
Right.
and sometimes people aren't really talking about what you wrote, but something else. So
Right.
you have to sort that out, and just kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. Because you're going to get it all. But I haven't really been in many groups that have been uh, harshly critical. They've been critical, but mostly in a productive way.
Yeah.
So you gotta just you gotta be able to put it out there and take the hits, but you know
And again, it's important to find the group you feel comfortable and click with, that you
yeah,
understand
yeah.
you're getting constructive criticism, or figuring out that, yeah, that guy really isn't being constructive. He's just being a jerk. You kind of figure that out, because there's people like that all over.
Oh yeah,
And you mentioned, like with Dave's group, there's a focus more on the marketing and the after, which is unique for these types of groups. Mostly they're critique groups.
hmm
So working with Dave in that aspect as a group, and everybody, here's what I'm doing, suggestions and helping out, is
uh,
different. That's one of the reasons I really like that group too.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
We do. He does do some critiques, some
yeah,
kind of pop up critiques. So there's a piece of that at the end, but my main interest is trying to sort out how the heck to advertise and market and promote, because
right,
I've got the books. I want more people to connect with them, and
right,
that's where he really helps.
yeah. So, what are some things you're doing to market your books?
Well, I've gone through a lot of different phases, trying to do things. I last year and the year before, I did a lot of newsletter promotions, where you put your book in for 99 cents, and I've sold a lot of books, but didn't get a lot of money. Um, I connected with a guy called Brian Cohen. He's got a whole advertising program that he put together. I did one of his free sessions last year, and I kind of liked his approach to everything. It's pretty much a business approach. You got to make sure you're making a profit, what you're spending, balance, is is bringing in the royalties.
Mhm.
So it's a different approach, from that. And I was doing Amazon advertising, but this is a different approach to it, and it seems to be working, And I seem to be, instead of just getting hits on the 99 cents, I'm selling books at full price. And I'm early in the program. And then the other thing was, part of that is, I looked at, to be honest with you, I looked at all my sales from everywhere else. Apple, Barnes and Noble, Smashwords, Kobo, and I decided to go all in to try the Kindle Unlimited to see how that'll work, because
Okay.
I got to give it a try. Got to try everything. So.
And that, point there too, because I listen to some of the same podcasts, some of the same groups, and hear discussion. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, we hate Amazon. We stay away from it. We're just going wide everywhere." But then I've heard other people say, "Yeah, but when I went to Kindle Unlimited, I sold more books, and I was making more money, better living, and I could support my writing better." And some people say, "Well, I did that for a while. It died off. Then I went wide, and I had a bigger audience." I think my point with that is, it doesn't need to be a holy war. It doesn't need to be something where people look down upon somebody else for doing one thing or the other. The choices are there, and you have to make what works best for your book and you. And that doesn't mean it's that way every time or all the time. So it's good to hear that you figured out something that worked well for you.
Yeah. Well, truth be told, I mean, I went wide until January, right? I was everywhere, and to be honest with you, with all my sales, 80% of my sales were at Amazon, right? And with Amazon, they give you a advertising tool that you can use to promote your books. You don't get that anywhere else. You don't get that on Smashwords. There's a little bit of it on Kobo, but it's hard to get into that stuff. So you're kind of left out on your own, and that's why I started doing the newsletter promotions. And I'm going to continue to do that, but it's mostly to drive more traffic to my books. So, like I said, I'll take a look at it and see how it all works out.
And it's interesting because I have some nonfiction books out there that I haven't even really touched. No advertising, no anything with them for quite a while. And starting this year, I've been getting reports from Apple, and I've been selling as much on Apple with those as I have on Amazon. Again,
Really?
nonfiction with no absolute promotion whatsoever, not even a website or
Yeah.
anything anymore. I've
Yeah.
just been letting them sit. And so I'm like,
Well,
well,
good for you.
yeah. And so now it's the question, well, what can I do to make that even more? Well, once you start
Mhm.
getting traction, it's easier to keep going
Oh, yeah.
with
Yeah.
those. But I understand, because getting into some of those, Google especially, is like really difficult to get set up and get everything in there, it seems. And then if you're selling like one book every 6 months, you got to go, well, is it worth it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I toyed around a little bit with Facebook ads. I didn't have much luck. I did some Bing ads and some Google ads, but it was a drain on my finances, more or less. I wasn't seeing much return on it that I could trace.
Mhm.
So, and like I said, the whole program that I'm in now is really focused on, tracking your royalties, tracking your conversions, making sure that, the money you're putting out for advertising, you're staying ahead of the game on royalties. So I kind of like that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So have you seen, I know it's only been like a month and a half, have you seen an increase in your Kindle Unlimited, your Amazon sales and all of that from making this change?
I not in the I've seen, yeah, I've had Kindle Unlimited reads coming in,
Okay.
but I think that's going to be a long build, you know, to you know to build that up. I my my numbers have gone down in terms of units sold, but my income, my royalties are up because I'm not just selling 99-cent books. I'm
Right.
selling full priced ebooks. So and that's all a good sign.
Yeah.
So and like I said, I'm in my third month, I think,
Okay.
of doing
Nice.
that.
So you mentioned, jumping back a little bit, you mentioned Scrivener, and we've talked about the groups. Are there any other services that you're using that work well for you, either writing, marketing, or whatever?
Um, well, to be honest with you, I use Grammarly, to do a quick edit on my stuff and sort out the the big the big boo boos that I put in there all the time. So that's a good product to use, and it's free. Um, and Scrivener is just, if you're serious about writing, it's got everything you need, in terms of a word processor to compose your book, and then it's got a whole binder where you can load in PDFs and links and stuff, so you have all your research, you know, for your book right there, available right at hand.
Yep.
And then at the end of it, it it will spit out a finished ebook for you. So that's been the best thing I've done in a long while. And then other than that, then my editor, B Love, I met her a while back, 2014, I think, and she's edited all my books, and she's just been a great resource to have, real helpful.
Editors are very important. And I know a lot of people get scared of sending it to the editor and waiting for it to come back. But I've learned, for me, it's been my uh, expensive education,
Mm-hmm.
improving myself because I put the personality and the ego aside and listen to the editor. And once I can accept what's being said, I'm like, okay, I can see how this is improving things. Uh,
Yeah.
so I personally now really like sending things to my editor because everything gets better once I get it back and work on my writing. So
Oh yeah, and it's like, I don't care how many beta readers you have or anything like that. Because I have other people reading my books, and I run it through the writers group, and you get feedback with that. And I think, oh, okay, now I'm fine. I'll send it off to her, and it comes, marked up, marked up, marked up.
right,
But she's right, so it's like, yeah, yeah, I need that. I need that help. I'd rather
yes,
I'd rather focus on the story than on the grammar.
yes, and I think a lot of times people get caught up on the trees and focusing on sentences and words and structure and all that. And
Uh,
I realized the one day I got done reading a book, I loved it, and I realized I'm like, you know what? I love this story. I could tell you about it, but I can't give you a specific of chapter 18. I
uh,
don't remember specifically chapter 18. I remember the overall story. I can't tell you any great sentences. I mean, I can't recite them like Shakespeare or anything. I'm like,
uh,
so all this worry about the grammar and the structure of the sentence is so minimal compared to the great story that the author pulled me into.
yeah,
That's what people remember. That revelation to me, I mean, it sounds like, well, yeah, duh, but really you have to internalize that. And, that moment I really realized that's the important stuff, really. You got to get that
yeah.
down before the other stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're right. It's the storytelling that's
Yeah,
what's important, and that's what he did. Whoever the author was did a great job of sucking you into the story and making that the most important thing, and not coming up with quote lines or stuff like that. And that's that's what we all kind of aim for, at least try to,
right.
is to present a great story, that people will remember.
Yeah. And that's difficult sometimes. There are writers, believe it or not. I don't really care for Patterson. I've read a few of his books, and none of them were like, oh, this is great to me. But like my mother loves reading Patterson. So, different people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you on that. I mean, it's I don't know. Well, for me, it was too cliffhangery. You know what I mean? It's like every chapter was like it almost became wearisome. That, oh, here's another cliffhanger. Now I got to go. Yeah, here's another cliffhanger. Here's another cliff.
Right.
And I get it, but you can overdo good things as well. So
right, and you got to wonder, what is it about Patterson doing that turns me off, whereas like Kuntz does it, and it just makes me want to read more. There's got to be, that's where it's the overall story, but also the structure of it that we read, and kind of it flows with us. I don't know how to describe it and very metaphysically, but I'm not focused on, well, this grammar in this sentence is perfect, but it's the way it's written. It connects with me, is what I'm guessing, if I had to really analyze it.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and well, it's just like, there's 1,000 ways to write books, right?
Right.
And not everyone. I don't get. It's kind of like some I can take and some I can't. And that doesn't make any of them bad. It's just that here's a style that I relate to. Here's a story I relate to.
Right.
I don't relate to the constant cliffhangers.
Right.
So.
All right. So, MT Mudcat, this has been great. Before we go, do you have any like last minute advice you would give to new authors listening?
Well, it's, we've heard this at the Cleveland Writers Group, is you got to finish the damn thing, right? That's the whole, really that's the point, is just putting words to paper. And that's all I do. I get up early, 5 or 5:30, and I write for a couple hours. And it's pretty surprising. You just keep piling up the words, and before you know it, you have a book, and then you can go back and edit and put everything together. But it really doesn't take that long if you're doing a little bit every day. And that's what I would recommend. Just write every day and pile the words up, and voila, you got a novel.
You find a good group that you can click with.
Yeah. And that too.
Yeah.
For once the story's done.
Yes. All right. I appreciate you taking some time. It was great talking to you today, outside of the first Monday of the month.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's great being on the podcast. It's great.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.